12 noon in the East. Trying to get a little bounce here, trying to keep it going. Dow's good for 157. S&P's good for a little more than 0.75%. Nasdaq's positive as we await those critical earnings in overtime tonight. There's the Russell giving some back today. 287 is the yield on the 10-year note. But it is all about Apple. John Najarian. Normally, this stock has a nice run into the number. Now, granted, it's up today, but it hasn't really been the case lately. And we've been worried about it to some respects. You own the stock. You own the options. What are your own expectations?
I think Microsoft told us a lot, Scott, as far as, cloud. Apple's version of cloud, of course, is different. It's individual. It's not big corporate cloud as much as Amazon Web Services will be, as Azure was, as you reported last night and again today. I think overall, Scott, Microsoft, the read-through there was that there is big demand for that cloud. I think Apple will continue to have big demand for wearables, for the services, health. I think this will be a very good quarter. And I think, stable numbers are good for the market here. I don't know that we're going to get any kind of blow-off numbers because I just don't really see that in the cards. But as Meta showed you, you don't really need blow-off numbers after stocks have been hit pretty good. And Apple, even though it's, like you say, had a nice little bounce, it's still a bit of a ways away from that, 183 high that we hit when it topped 3 trillion briefly, Scott. I think it's still significantly below that number.
Needed to hold that. I mean, that 150 level, Steve Weiss, is the one we've been watching so closely. Now it's gotten itself back to 160. John mentioned services, which are a massive business in its own right. The question is, what's happening with growth in the services sector? It's slowing, we know, but by how much? What's happening in China with supply chain, getting chips and the other things that go into iPhones and all of those other products? We'll find out from Tim Cook, but there's a lot riding on this. And I know there was a lot riding, to John's point, on Microsoft. And in some respects, Facebook too. But this is the big daddy. They got to deliver.
Yeah, look, I think that expectations, as with Facebook, despite the relative declines in the stock, are still kind of low. And that they have to have a big miss to really offset the stock. And I don't see that happening. I don't see much in terms of guidance either, which are not great at giving and do it for a very limited time frame. But when they do give it. But look, I mean, this is really ground zero. It's ground zero for the supply chain. Although if any company on this planet can twist arms to make sure they're first in line for semis, et cetera, it's Apple. But it's also ground zero for the consumer and inflation in terms of, can the consumer still buy those phones, which are having limited innovation, the upgrades, your favorite word, Scott, or do they need to spend it on required living, what's required for living, like food and gas, et cetera? I think they get through it. I still own puts on it. I was short calls, but they've traded down to basically nothing because they're expiring on Friday, tomorrow. So I'm out of those. But I'm a little concerned about it, and I'm a little concerned about it going forward because I see the consumer being bifurcated, and a large part of their base are consumers that don't have that inelastic spending ability. So, look, I don't think the market falls apart if it trades to 150 or even below any more than it's done recently. But if it has a blowout number, then I think that's an excuse for a rally.
Well, I mean, look, 150 is key. Let's be honest, Weiss. The market is not going to be in a good spot
I just don't think so.
If Apple breaks below 150.
Look, we had Google, which came out, and they didn't do well. Stock traded down significantly. The first downtick of Microsoft was lower. Now it required.
Yeah, no, but Google's not Apple.
It's not far away.
Google's not Apple.
I just don't think it's that far away.